It was a rainy Thursday night when Daniel took the scenic route home through Dartmoor. The usual motorway was closed for maintenance, and his GPS suggested this winding, remote detour through the moors. The road was narrow, mist curled along the edges, and the headlights barely cut through the heavy fog. The silence inside, his car was broken only by the rhythmic thump of the windshield wipers. As he rounded a bend near an old stone wall, he saw her standing alone by the roadside. A young woman soaked from head to toe, wearing a pale blue dress that clung to her thin frame. She didn't wave or call for help, just stood there shivering, her arms crossed tightly against her chest. Instinctively, Daniel slowed down and rolled down the window. "Need a lift?" he asked. She nodded silently and got in without a word. Her long dark hair was plastered to her face. Water dripped onto the seat. Daniel felt a chill even though the heater was on full blast. She whispered an address: Lidford, a small village about 20 minutes away. As they drove, Daniel tried to make small talk, but she barely responded. The only thing she said clearly was, "You shouldn't take the lower road when it rains. Bad things happen there." Her voice was soft, almost like an echo. Daniel laughed nervously. "Yeah, like what?" She just stared out the window. They reached a fork in the road. The GPS said the lower road would be faster, so Daniel took it. Almost immediately, the car dipped into a muddy stretch. The tires struggled for grip. The trees seemed to crowd in closer, and the fog grew impossibly thick. Then the woman screamed, "You brought me back to where I died." Daniel slammed the brakes. When he turned to her, she was gone. The passenger seat was completely dry. Panicking, Daniel drove straight to the address she had mentioned. It was an old cottage with ivy creeping up its stone walls. An elderly woman answered the door. He asked if a girl lived there, described the hitchhiker in detail. The woman's face went pale. "That was my daughter," she said slowly. "She died in a car crash on the lower road 10 years ago tonight." It was supposed to be just a fun detour, something spontaneous. To make the road trip more memorable, James and Alex were heading back to Dublin from a weekend in Northern Ireland when they saw the old road sign, "Clifton Tunnel, use at own risk." They looked at each other and grinned. James, behind the wheel, shrugged. What's life without a little horror movie moment? The tunnel wasn't listed on Google Maps. It looked abandoned, cracked at the edges, with rusted iron gates pulled open just enough to let a car through. The sign below the entrance was half faded but still legible. "Do not enter after dark." They drove in anyway. As soon as they passed under the arch, the signal vanished. The GPS froze and the radio turned to static. James flicked on the headlights, but the darkness inside was so thick it barely pushed back. "Creepy but kinda cool," Alex said. They drove for 5 minutes, then 10. Still no sign of an exit. That's when they noticed the markings on the tunnel wall. At first it looked like graffiti, but then Alex recognized a symbol, a spiral looped into itself. It was the exact same symbol he'd seen scrawled in an old book of Irish folklore about time traps. The spiral was a warning. Suddenly, the tunnel lights above flickered on for just a second. In that brief flash, they both saw it, another car ahead of them. Identical to theirs. Same make, same model, same license plate. Then it vanished. James slammed the brakes. Before they could speak, the temperature dropped. The windows fogged over. From outside, soft knocking echoed against the passenger side window. Alex turned slowly to look and froze. Someone was staring in. Someone with his exact face, except the eyes, were completely black. James stepped on the gas. The car roared forward through the endless tunnel. But no matter how far they drove, the exit never came. The clock on the dashboard blinked 2:14 a.m. It had been that time for the last 20 minutes. Eventually, James couldn't take it anymore. He screamed and slammed the steering wheel. Everything went dark. The next morning, authorities found the car parked silently just outside the tunnel entrance. Only Alex was inside, staring blankly ahead, mumbling something over and over. "He took my time. He took my time." Martin had been a truck driver for nearly 15 years, and nothing ever rattled him. But that night, somewhere in the remote countryside of Yorkshire, something changed. He was on a late-night delivery route, navigating narrow backroads lined with stone walls and empty fields. The fog was thick, almost unnaturally so, and the GPS kept losing signal. Tired and needing a break, Martin pulled over near an old, overgrown plot of land that looked like an abandoned farm field. There was no lighting, no signs, just a flat patch of ground and a few crooked wooden posts sticking out from the tall grass. He turned off the engine, leaned back in his seat, and closed his eyes for what was meant to be just 5 minutes. Then came the sound. A knock, light, slow, from somewhere under the truck. Martin froze. He looked out the window, nothing but mist. Another knock, louder this time, like something was tapping the undercarriage. Thinking it was maybe an animal or debris, Martin climbed down with a flashlight and walked around the vehicle. The beam caught something sticking out of the ground just beside the rear wheels. A weather-worn stone. He stepped closer and brushed away the dirt with his boot. A name was etched into the surface, barely legible, but there was a date. 18 to 17. He'd parked on an old grave. Martin muttered a quick apology, jumped back in the truck and tried to start the engine. It wouldn't turn over. The dashboard flickered, and the screen displayed a single word in red. Return. Then the knocking started again, this time from inside the cab. Behind him. He looked in the rearview mirror and saw a figure in the sleeper compartment. A black shape, head tilted at an unnatural angle, crawling slowly forward. He turned around in a panic, but nothing was there. Suddenly, the engine roared to life by itself. The truck sped forward without Martin touching the pedal. The GPS came back online, but the screen showed coordinates, not a location. As he stared at them, the truck's lights flickered, and the voice on the navigation system whispered, "Back to where it began." By morning, the truck was found abandoned in a ditch miles away. The driver's seat was empty. The only clue left behind was the dashcam footage, 30 seconds of static, then a frame of Martin's terrified face, and a shadowed figure slowly rising behind him, reaching over his shoulder.